Last lesson we looked at double angles. This lesson we are going to look at half angles. I'm going to jump right into the half angle identities. Here's the half angle identity for sine, cosine, and tangent. You'll also notice that there are two other forms for tangent that do not include the square root. As far as the plus or minus goes, you only pick one of them, and that depends on which quadrant you're in. And that will determine if it's positive or negative. So jumping right into example 1, we want to find the exact value of the cosine of pi over 12. Well, pi over 12 is not special. So with a calculator, it's pretty easy, but without one, we can use half angles. So first off, where is pi over 12? Pi over 12 is in the first quadrant, so the cosine is positive in the first quadrant, as is all of the trig functions. So the sign that we will choose will be the positive one. Then we would come up here and we're going to use this formula right here, the cosine of u over 2. Now that's the same thing as the cosine of 1/2, that's the u over 2 part, times the angle. So if you take pi over 12 and you multiply it by 1/2, you want it to equal pi over 12. So this would be pi over 6, because 1/2 times pi over 6 gives me my original, which is pi over 12. So I made this equivalent to pi over 12. I come up to the half angle. The u in this problem is going to simply be the pi over 6. So here's your u part. So it's plus or minus. We're going to pick the plus part. We've got the square root of 1 plus cosine u. So 1 plus the cosine of pi over 6 over 2. And let's go ahead and simplify it and we'll have our answer. So the cosine of pi over 6 is root 3 over 2. So this is the square root of 1 plus root 3 over 2 over 2. And think of this as over 2 over 1. So how do we get rid of a fraction in a fraction? We look at the denominators and we say, okay, we're going to get rid of those denominators by multiplying by 2 over 2. So 2 times 1 is going to give me 2. So this is the square root of 2. And then this 2 will cancel with that 2. So it's 2 plus root 3 over, and then 2 times 2 is 4. If you break up the square root of 4 is 2 on the bottom. And the top, you're going to have the square root of 2 plus root 3. And that looks pretty complicated, but that's what the cosine of pi over 12 equals if we're looking at its exact value. It is the square root of 2 plus root 3 all over 2. All right, let's find the exact value of the tangent of 22.5 degrees. So again, we're going to have tangent, and we're going to use the half angle formula. So here's the half angle, and if we're taking, we want to get 22.5. So really what you do is you double it, and that's 45. So now let's go back and see if we get the original. Half times 45 is 22.5. So in the formula, the u is going to be 45 degrees. Now, I recommend using one of the formulas without the square root so you don't have to worry about the plus or minus. So 1 subtract the cosine of 45 degrees over the sine of 45 degrees. So the cosine of 45 is root 2 over 2. So 1 subtract root 2 over 2 over root 2 over 2. Now, the denominators are all 2, and so I'm going to multiply the top and the bottom of this complex fraction by 2 over 2. So you're going to multiply the 2 to each of those things, and I'm kind of out of room, but over here, final answer, 2 times 1 is 2. The 2's here will cancel, so it would be subtract root 2 over, here the 2's cancel, root 2. And we want to rationalize that denominator, so let's multiply the top and bottom by root 2 over root 2. The square root of 2 times the square root of 2 on the bottom is simply 2. On the top you have 2 root 2, or 2 root 2 minus the square root of 2 times the square root of 2 is simply 2. Now, you can, if you do this triangle trick, do you notice that you can cancel all 3 parts of the triangle? So those 2's are going to cancel. You do have to make this a 1 here and a 1 here. So now, final answer is the square root of 2 subtract 1. And that's what the tangent of 22.5 equals as far as the exact value goes. Example 2, we're going to solve this equation, and the domain is from 0 to 2 pi. The sine of x equals sine x over 2. So we will start by replacing the half angle with a single angle. So the sine of x is equal to, we don't know if it's going to be the plus or minus yet, so we'll include both. And we have the square root of 1 minus the cosine of x over 2. So how we're going to solve this is we're going to get rid of the square root by squaring both sides. So on the left side, we end up with the sine squared x is equal to. Now the minus is going to cancel when you square it, and then the square root and the square will cancel. So on the right hand side, I simply have 1 minus the cosine, 1 minus cosine x over 2. I want to get rid of the 2 in the bottom, so I'm going to multiply both sides of the equation by 2. So now this is what I have. So now I think I'll set the whole thing equal to 0. I'm kind of concerned that I have sines and cosines, but I'll deal with that in a moment. So 2 sine squared x, add the cosine, plus cosine x, subtract the 1, equals 0. Because I have sines and cosines, I'm going to change the sine squared x using Pythagorean. 2 in place of sine squared x is 1 minus cosine squared x. So I replace that with this, which is Pythagorean, plus cosine x minus 1 equals 0. Take the 2 and distribute it. 2 subtract, 2 subtract 2 cosine squared x plus cosine x subtract 1 equals 0. Alright, so from there, we're just going to reorder everything. So let's put the cosine squared x in front. So I have negative 2 cosine squared x plus cosine x, add your 2 and your negative 1 together, plus 1 equals 0. Let's get rid of that negative in front by multiplying both sides by the negative 1. So now I have 2 cosine squared x plus cosine x. Ooh, no, minus cosine x. You knew that, right? Minus cosine x. Subtract 1 equals 0. 0 times negative 1 is negative 1. So now we factor 2 cosine x times cosine x is 2 cosine squared x, and then 1 times 1 is 1, and this one will be positive and this one negative, equals 0. Put each factor equal to 0. 2 cosine x plus 1 equals 0, and cosine x minus 1 equals 0. I know I'm going really fast, so you may have to stop the video to get caught up. So cosine x is equal to negative 1/2 when I subtract the 1 and divide by 2, and cosine x is equal to 1. Where is the cosine equal to a negative 1/2? It's equal to a negative 1/2 in the first quadrant, no, in the second quadrant at 2 pi over 3, and in the third quadrant at 4 pi over 3. And then where is the cosine equal to 1? It's equal to 1 at 0. Now, because, let's see, so looking at the domain, because we are between 0 and 2 pi, but we're not solving for x, we're solving for x over 2. So we're going to have to adjust that domain, which means that the half angle is going to be between 0 and pi. So 4 pi over 3 is not between 0, including 0 and pi. And so our two answers are just going to be 2 pi over 3 and 0. So go ahead, try solving that equation. You have a half angle here, x over 2. So use your half angle identity to solve that equation. Give it a try.